My name's Nathan Baker. I farm in Waldron, Michigan. We're kind of based right on the Ohio-Michigan state line. I have a seed dealership there. I sell for Golden Harvest. So we deal with a lot of different diseases. We specifically fight white mold. That's the big one for us in soybeans. I will see some sudden death syndrome, some soybean cyst nematodes occasionally. Yes, so the white mold is kind of the one that's the hardest of those to control, right? Like we have a lot of different seed treatment options for SDS, for cyst nematodes, but white mold, there's not a lot of things out there. And so unless you're willing to spend a lot of money on a fungicide very specific for that, and if you happen to need it, you may or you may not, we've done a lot of things like reducing populations. We've gone to a little bit wider rows when fields where we need it, but the thing that I found that's kind of been the most effective has been using the Heads Up seed treatment. Yeah, so when we started using Heads Up probably 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't do a lot of great trial work that first year. I kind of had some anecdotal evidence to say, you know, the fields where I didn't use it, we saw a little bit of white mold. Where we did use it, we didn't see it. So that was enough to kind of get me to try it, because it's a very reasonably priced product to use. But last year I decided to actually do a pretty well-run trial and see, are we actually getting any results out of this product or not. So I took a field, had the same variety. One box of it was treated with just my normal base seed treatment. The other box had the base seed treatment plus the Heads Up on it. And I tried to plant blocks throughout the field, so it wasn't just a split, you know, half the field and half the field. We did multiple trials to kind of replicate that across different parts of the field, different soil types, different areas. And then turns out that 2025, we didn't have any white mold. Was kind of banking on that. It was the year where it just didn't show up for us. We turned really dry at the end of the summer. So my expectations were that we weren't really going to see much from the results. As we got into the combine in the fall, didn't see a ton from the combine, but as you know, in beans, a bushel or two can make a huge difference, especially with a product like Heads Up. And so after I sat down at the computer, kind of analyzed some stuff, across the whole field, we saw a 4 bushel advantage to the Heads Up. When I kind of isolated out the center of the field, took out some of the end rows and the stuff that you really shouldn't have in the trial, we were still seeing about a 4 bushel advantage to it. Kind of highlighted out some of those blocks that I was talking about, you know, higher production areas versus lower production areas, and pretty much everywhere through the field it was a 2 to 4 bushel advantage from the results that I saw. So if you're thinking about doing a trial with Heads Up, the first thing you got to do is make sure that you have good data, and to do that you've got to have clean lines and breaks between your trial zones. I don't recommend just doing half the field and half the field. Having more replications and doing multiple trials, or not multiple products but multiple blocks like replications throughout the field, is always a good practice. Making sure that, you know, if you're going to plant on an angle, you got to harvest on the same angle. You can't be crossing the rows in your breaks of the trials to keep your data pure. Yeah, my pitch for using Heads Up to my seed customers is always that it's a pretty cheap way to increase your yields, and it really, if it does anything, it is worth it. That's kind of my line, is if it does anything at all, it's worth it, because it doesn't cost much. You know, a half a bushel increase in your yields, you've paid for the product. And so if you think you might have some white mold pressure, if you think you've got a little bit of SDS, if you think you've got cyst nematodes, you might as well put this in there, because it's probably going to return well more than what you're going to pay for it.